The elements and principles of design are fundamental building blocks to creating visually compelling and effective work. Whether your focus is on graphic design, industrial design, or even architecture, these concepts are foundational. Let's start by talking about the elements of design. Think of these as the ingredients that you need to create any design. There are 7 core elements: line, shape, form, color, value, space, and texture. First, let's talk about line. Lines are one of the most basic elements in design, and don't let that fool you. Lines have power. They can create structure, guide the eye, and even convey emotion. A straight line might feel rigid and precise, while a curvy, organic line can feel playful and relaxed. Next, we have shape. Shapes are created when lines enclose a space. They come in 2 basic categories: geometric and organic. Geometric shapes like squares and triangles feel structured and mathematical, while organic shapes feel like those found in nature. They feel more fluid and freeform. Shapes help establish hierarchy and meaning in design. Think about a stop sign. It's an octagonal shape. Immediately, it communicates importance and grabs attention. Moving on to form. While shapes are 2-dimensional, forms are 3-dimensional. They have height, width, and depth. In graphic design, we simulate form using techniques like shading, perspective, and lighting to make objects appear more realistic. If you've ever seen a product rendering, that's form in action. Color, everyone's favorite element. Color is incredibly powerful and emotional. It's more than just aesthetics, it's communication. Color theory helps us understand how colors interact, how they evoke certain feelings, and how they influence perception. Warm colors like red and orange can energize, while cool colors like blue and green create a sense of calm. Understanding color harmony and contrast is key to making effective design choices. Next is value. Value refers to the lightness or darkness of a color. It's crucial in creating contrast and guiding the viewer's eye through a design. High contrast can create drama and emphasis, while low contrast can create a soft, harmonious feel. Imagine a black and white photo. It relies entirely on value to define shapes and depth. Then we have space. Space refers to an area within, around, and between elements. It can create emphasis, balance, and focus with a design. Negative space, or empty space, is just as important as the elements themselves. Think about the hidden arrow in the FedEx logo or the use of white space in modern minimalist designs. Finally, texture. Texture brings a tactile quality to design, even in a digital format. It can add depth and interest by simulating how something might feel. In graphic design, we use texture in backgrounds, typography, or images to add dimension and richness. All right, now that we've covered the elements of design, let's talk about how we arrange them using the principles of design. At the core of every great design are 8 fundamental principles that guide how elements come together to create harmony and impact. These principles are balance, contrast, emphasis, movement, pattern, proportion, repetition, and unity. Let's explore each one of these and see how they contribute to a strong, thoughtful design. First, let's talk about balance. Balance is all about distributing elements in a way that creates visual stability. There are 3 types of balance: symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. Symmetrical balance gives a sense of formality and structure by evenly distributing elements on either side of the central axis, while asymmetrical balance creates a more dynamic, modern feel by balancing elements of different sizes, colors, or textures. Radial balance, on the other hand, arranges elements around a central point, creating movement and energy, often seen in circular designs like mandalas or clock faces. Next, we have contrast, which helps to create visual interest and draw attention to key elements. Contrast occurs when elements with opposing qualities, such as light and dark, rough and smooth, or large and small, are placed next to each other. Strong contrast can help important content stand out and make a design more engaging. Closely related to contrast is emphasis, which is used to highlight the most important parts of a design. Emphasis guides the viewer's eye to a focal point, ensuring that the most critical information is seen first. Designers achieve emphasis by using techniques like color, scale, and placement to create hierarchy and visual direction. Think of a movie poster. The title is often the biggest element, drawing your attention first before you explore the rest of the design. Movement is another key principle that leads the viewer's eye through a composition in a deliberate way. Designers use movement to control how a viewer navigates through the design, whether it's through leading lines, directional cues, or the strategic placement of elements. Movement is what makes a design feel dynamic and alive, encouraging engagement and guiding the viewer naturally from one point to the next. Pattern is the repeated arrangement of elements that create consistency and rhythm in a design. Patterns can add texture and interest, whether they're decorative or functional. For example, websites often use repeated icons and grids to create a sense of familiarity and organization, while textiles use patterns to create decorative motifs that reflect culture and style. Proportion helps establish hierarchy and harmony, making sure elements feel well balanced and intentional. Good proportion ensures that no part of the design feels out of place, whether it's the size of an image in relation to text or the spacing of elements within a layout. Repetition is another crucial principle that reinforces consistency and brand recognition. By repeating colors, shapes, or styles, designers create a sense of cohesion and rhythm that makes a design feel more unified. Repetition is especially important in branding, where consistent use of logos, fonts, and colors help to build familiarity and trust with an audience. Finally, unity ties everything together. Unity ensures that all of the elements in the design work harmoniously to create a cohesive whole. When a design has unity, it feels intentional and complete, with every component supporting the overall message and purpose. Achieving unity requires careful planning, attention to detail, and a strong understanding of how these principles work together. These 8 principles help designers create work that is not only visually appealing, but also functional and meaningful. So now that we've covered both the elements and principles of design, how do these concepts come together in the real world of design? A great example of elements and principles in use comes from the work of Wassily Kandinsky, a pioneer in abstract art. In his painting Composition 8, Kandinsky uses bold, dynamic lines to create movement and visual harmony. This abstract painting uses lines, shapes, and color to guide the viewer's eye and create a sense of movement and balance in an otherwise abstract composition. Kandinsky's work reminds us that even abstract designs can feel unified and intentional when the elements are used thoughtfully. Another historical example is that of Joseph Albers, who dedicated much of his career to studying how colors interact. His series of works, Homage to the Square, consists of concentric squares in varying colors that explore how we perceive color relationships. For example, placing a bright yellow next to a muted gray can make the yellow appear even more vibrant. Albers' work teaches us that color is never static. It's always influenced by its surroundings. A more contemporary design example is the work from Ellen Lupton, a renowned designer and educator known for her focus on typography and user experience. In her book, Thinking with Type, Lupton demonstrates how line, shape, and space work together to create clear, engaging layouts. She uses line to guide the reader's eye, shape to organize content, and space to balance elements for readability. These concepts are equally important in other types of design, such as architecture and interior design. Consider the work of Frank Lloyd Wright, one of the most influential architects of the 20th century, in his famous design for Falling Water. Wright masterfully uses line and form to integrate the structure with its natural surroundings. The horizontal lines of the balconies create a sense of movement and connection to the flowing water below, while the organic materials emphasize unity with nature. In terms of design principles, Wright's work showcases balance by harmonizing modern geometric shapes with natural elements and proportion through carefully scaled spaces that feel both intimate and expansive. He also applies emphasis by drawing attention to key features such as large windows, framing scenic views, and utilizes rhythm through repeated structural elements that create a cohesive flow throughout the space. To wrap things up here, the elements of design and the principles of design are the building blocks and the foundation that designers use to create effective designs.